Hey, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bold Expression. No, sorry, it's not Bold Expressions. This is Random Thoughts. Get your show right, Carl. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Random Thoughts. It's so random, I forgot the name of my show. So this one, I wanted to talk about. I've talked about white privilege. Yeah, white privilege before. Is actually one of my. I want to say one of my most listened to episodes. I'm thankful for that. Um, last night, I won't say last night, recently, I watched a video by one of the YouTubers I enjoyed, Jesse Dollamore. And he addressed this video made by PragerU and his comedian Adam Carolla, to where they were talking about how white privilege doesn't exist. And in it is, and it's one of those things, and I've talked about this many times before, to where it's one of those things where the person talking, and you think that either A, they're too stupid to know what they're talking about, or B, they're they know what they're talking about and they're purposely misleading you, gaslighting you, giving misinformation to their people so that you don't pay attention to the, there is the willful ignorance type of thing. They know what they're talking about, but they're going to tell you this lie. They're going to spin things so that the people that they're talking to hopefully don't know and won't bother looking or think critically about the straw man arguments they're bringing up. He was talking about how if I told you that there was a guy who came from a poor family, lived in their car, had to dig out the trash, divorced family. He was saying all these things. He's like, if I said that was a black person, you'd think, yeah, because there's systemic racism. If I told you that person was me, then you'd be like, oh no. And he tried to talk about how hard it is to be a white person because nobody cares about you and this, that, and the other. And right from that starting point, it already irritated me because it's like, oh, he's one of these people who's going to try to argue that white privilege means that white people don't have it hard at all. And once again, that goes into so that means that you either don't understand what white privilege is, or you do and you're just using the misunderstanding that a lot of white people have to try to deflect and trick them into being upset about it and being like, yeah, see, white people have it hard too. Um, he brought up he brought up multiple examples. Another one was, if I get pulled over by the cops, I think it's either because I've been speeding or whatever, or the cop is a jerk. He's like, what I don't think about is race, which, and as Jesse pointed out, that statement right there makes you think there's like, it's so frustrating because it's like they're in that lies white privilege, that you getting pulled over by the cops, you know for a factor that it has nothing to do with your race. That whatever issues you have, you being white is not one of them. And then he throws up the thing about, if a black person, gets pulled over, to think about it doesn't have to do with the race, is he being profiled, whatever. And it's like, like maybe, it would stop being an issue if you stop thinking about it. He brings up one of those things of, well, yeah, aside from some people, yeah, some people do, are jerks or whatever. That's how they always put it. Some people are jerks. But if you stop talking about it, if you stop, or as I say, if you stop whining about it, if you stop bringing it up, then it won't be an issue. Basically meaning, just straight up saying, yes, these are issues, but it'll only be an issue if you talk about it. Which is like, well, so are you saying that if we stop talking about it, then these people will stop being racist? No, they're going to still be racist. You just stop talking about it. It reminds me of this meme that I posted before with Chris Rock saying, funny how there's more people saying there are more people who want you to stop talking about police being racist than there are saying that police need to stop being racist or that people need to stop being racist. Not even gonna put it on cops, but it's just that there's more people saying I really wish you would stop talking about race issues or whatever, but they won't say anything about these people need to stop being racist. We need to address this issue. No, they just want you to stop talking about it because it makes them uncomfortable. And to Jesse's credit, which is why I love his videos, he points out that he's like, because he's a white male, he's just like, therein lies the issue that you don't have to worry about race. Like, that is your privilege as a white person. That's, systemically, white people have it easier. There's an unearned advantage you have as a white person, as far as jobs, as far as even his credibility. Recently there was a story, and there's been many stories lately about black homeowners having to whitewash their homes in order to get the proper value amount on their homes. This one couple almost got screwed out of, like, I'm gonna say hundreds of thousands of dollars off the appraisal of their home because the person lowballed them. So they got a white friend. They took down all their pictures, even art. They may suggest that, hey, listen, I don't know who this artist is. This seems like some Afrocentric art. They took all that down. This time their house was appraised for thousands of dollars more. I want to say, it wasn't the hundreds of thousands, a significant amount more than when the first person who appraised them. And it's just like, how is there that big of a gap? And of course, when something like that happens, you go like, well, who else has that first person been screwing out of money for whatever reason? And that's the thing of systemic racism. And people say, oh, it's illegal. It's like, but when it's kind of ingrained, when people do, doesn't have to be on the books, but it's a thing that they just do. That white, there's a benefit of something being legitimate because it's white. White people can get into schools or whatever. If a black person gets into stuff, it's assumed, oh, whether it's some type of affirmative action that went on, and that's why they got in. I've had conversations about, I watch wrestling. It's like, I want this person to be a champ. There's hasn't been next to none black champions. I think this person will be a great champion based on this. And people be like, well, don't you want them to be a champ because they're good or whatever? It's like, well, why would you assume? It's like any other person that we've talked about, it's assumed that, we want them to be in this position in a company because they're good, they're talented, whatever. Yet it's assumed that, oh, well, I just want this person because they're black. It's like, well, if you notice that we're talking about these particular black people who are objectively talented and not just average, just greatly, have great talent or whatever. We didn't say these other black wrestlers should be champs, but just these ones that are really, really good, that everybody can objectively say, this person is great. Yet, the assumption is like, oh, well, just because they're black, it's just like, well, why don't you, it's like, well, do you just want this guy just because he's white? It's like, you're assuming that I don't care about the person's talent, I just want them just because there is little things like that. The assumption of, the, what, in movies, promoting like Fast and Furious, whatever. Tyrese and Ludacris weren't really asked to go on the promo tours because they wanted the other actors, the lighter skinned actors or whatever, who are the white or white passing. you know, that type of thing. But it's something that Jesse pointed out that I think is an issue that, see a lot of these people talk about when they're whining about it. That accepting that white privilege exists does not mean that you are racist, does not mean that we're holding you accountable, and it does not mean we're not saying that white privilege is a thing that means you're evil, that means you're responsible. Nobody is saying that. The only times we say that is when you fight so hard against it to where it's just like, once again, it's like either you really don't understand it or you're willfully fighting against it because you don't want to understand it, or you don't want to, it's you want to keep your head in the sand. And like, if you're willfully trying to be ignorant about it, then yeah, it does come off as if, maybe you are racist, or maybe it is something to where you're fighting that hard against something to where it's, I don't know, and it's always funny because they love to hit you with, or maybe you guys just need to, take personal responsibility. It's they throw that thing to where you, individual black person, have to take responsible for all black people who mess up. Which is funny because they say that in response of thinking that that statement normally comes as a response of, hey, I didn't own slaves, I didn't personally do anything, don't lump me in with the rest of those, but you black people need to do it. It's just like, it's a funny thing. It's a, it's a funny deflect. So it's just like, so you're not responsible for any other racist white people, which was never the issue. Yet I need to take we need to take responsibility for all, you don't take responsibility for any racist white people, but I have to take responsibility for all black people who commit crime or who do whatever. Or the thing that kills me is when they bring up, well, black people may do better if they blah, 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 blah. And that kills me because they don't really give a damn about black people being successful in jobs or whatever. It's like, they don't really care. It's just a thing. It's just their go-to to try to throw at you. It's like, you don't really care, because if you actually cared, then you wouldn't be so dismissive about this other thing that is also a hindrance to us. It's like, we're not saying that other things aren't an issue, but you don't really care about that. You don't really actually know anything about it, because if you actually did know anything about black people and different issues and, struggles with that, then you would know about systemic issues that keep us down or oppress us, which once again goes into, so you're either just repeating talking points, with, could be the case, just repeating, don't know much on the issue, so just repeating talking points, to just seemingly hope that the other person can't argue against it, or hopefully to throw out those talking points so that the conversation can then be switched to that, so they don't have to continue talking about this other thing. Or once again, they're purposely trying to misdirect you and do things because they know that you're right or you have a point. But yeah, that's just. Oh, and then they also brought up the thing. Ideally, people in America are doing better than any people in any other. We're doing better than people in other countries, which ideally has no. It doesn't make. It doesn't make sense in the context, because if that's the case, then what is people like Trump who said, "Oh, make America great again"? It's like, well, we're doing better than people in other countries. So what? It's always a thing of, once again, an ownership type of thing. I can complain about America because this country is made for me and I belong here. I can complain about it, you know. However, if you complain about it, then you can just get out, because, hey, we gave you the right to vote. We gave you the things that I didn't have to fight for, the things that, you know, the things that probably, the nobody but the women in my family had to fight for. We gave to you. I mean, a lot of people died for it, before we gave it to you. Sorry, a lot of people were murdered for us to give it to you. After you fought tooth and nail for it, and even then, it's kind of in increments. And now we're trying to roll back on it because we see once we did give you certain things that it kind of retracted some of the power that we had. So we're kind of pulling some of that back. But yeah, we gave that to you, but you're doing better off. And it's always the thing of it's it's once again it's so much wrapped into this BS sandwich. There's so many layers to it. The thing they always go, well, no black person alive today, is a slave. And it's always that, once again, that whole thing, don't know if you're being purposely stupid or if you're just ignoring Jim Crow and all this other stuff, but they act like we went straight from slavery to Obama. It's like, no, there was a lot of stuff in between there. It's like, no, nobody, was a slave, but don't act like we went from, yeah, we're not slaves anymore to, yeah, we're CEOs and companies and we're doing this and we're able to just jump into. It's like, no, the people who still were like, we want them to be slaves are still around. They're still, there's them and there's kids, and those kids are growing up and they're still thinking that certain, and then just because, and don't, let's not act like, okay, yeah, we fought to free the slaves. I mean, we still don't think that they're as good as us, but yeah, we fought to free the slaves. I don't want them moving into my neighborhood, or, I don't want them taking jobs that I can have or whatever. I don't want them sitting sitting at the counter with me. Let's not act like the South is the only place to where black people were treated bad. So yeah, it wasn't just immediate. There was still, once again, and once again to the whole, well, maybe they just didn't talk about it. It's like I would love to talk to one of these people and just ask them, so do you think that Dr. King should have just kept his mouth shut? It's like, is that your point? Is that racism isn't that bad, and it is only worse if you talk about it? It's like, so do you think that people such as Dr. King should just shut their mouth, that race relations would have eventually gotten better if you didn't talk about it? Do you really think that? Do you really think that if black people didn't make it inconvenient for you to exist and to do, if we didn't make it inconvenient for you to go about your day without hearing about how it's messed up, the things that we have to go through, as Dr. King said, the things that we should have been granted at birth, but yet we still have to fight for. If we didn't make you have to hear it, then you would have given it to us on your own. Like, do you really think that? It's like, and also, do you think that all things being equal, that things are, like, yes, things are a lot better, but do you think that there's no racism at all? And once again, in the video, he talks about, like, yeah, taller people have an advantage over short people. Skinny people have an advantage over, fat people. Pretty people have an advantage over. It's like, so you acknowledge all these other things, but for some reason you refuse to believe that white people have an advantage over black people or other minorities. It's like, that's, once again, it's like either you are just, I don't even know if that's ignorant. I think that's a level of stupidity, if that's the case. Or if you're just gaslighting and you're just refusing to acknowledge it. It's like it's one of those, like, if you can acknowledge all these others, but you somehow are saying that white privilege does not exist, that having an advantage because being white. Once again, not saying that your life cannot be difficult, not saying that you cannot have hardships. That is not what white privilege is in the least. Nobody is saying that. Nobody is saying that white people can't live in the ghettos. White people can't be poor. White people can't, be uneducated and do all. It's like, but all things being equal, if there's a white person and black person standing side by side for things, that, a lot of times the white person won't have the advantage just simply by being white. That if they're both the same level of education, that, somebody won't go for the white person, if nothing else, than just because they have a more white sounding name or whatever. The black person name doesn't even have to be anything weird. It's just Steve and Derek or whatever. Or Derek. I don't know. It's just different. Just the appearance alone. It's I don't know. It's like I said, it's just frustrating because it's irritating that this is still a thing, that this is still a topic. And it's one of those things to where it's like, it reminds me of the whole thing with Colin Kaepernick, when people were talking about, well, if we knew why he was kneeling, it's like, well, he said it, and he said it while he was kneeling. He said his reason behind it. He also talked about a person when they tried to say, oh, it's disrespectful to the troops. Well, here's a soldier who told me why kneeling is more respectful than sitting down, because they kneel for certain things. It's like, so how is kneeling on? It's like, and it's one of those things where they're conflating one issue with another. And as I always go, it's like, purpose, are you actually that ignorant or stupid? Or do you actually know what you're talking about, and you're just willfully misleading other people to get them riled up? And unfortunately, the more I talk about these people, the more I think it's the latter. Because as I said, with that one point, it was so close to where it's just like, you are so close to acknowledging it, that I think you have to purposely be misleading people because you're a prick. Which is unfortunate, because it's a thing, like, I used to like Adam Carolla. But now it's also funny to where he's one of those people going, oh, people just need to stop complaining. People need to stop doing this and that. At the same time, oh, nobody cares about what white people go through, and nobody cares, if you're white, nobody cares if you're going. It's like, everybody else stop complaining and listen to me, well-off white person complain about these issues, and just, I don't know. It's frustrating. To conclude, white privilege, I can't say the word right. White privilege does not mean that you haven't had a hard life, that you haven't had issues, that you haven't had struggles that you had to overcome. That just comes with life. It also does not mean that you yourself are racist. It does not mean that we're trying to hold you accountable for all white people. That's not the issue either. It's just that it means that there are instances, to which you are afforded an undue and unearned advantage strictly by you being white. That's it. To where when somebody sees you, they don't automatically think that you're a thug. They don't automatically think that you're dangerous. They're not more likely to shoot you, or, if you have an interaction with a cop, to not think, are they am I going to have to make sure that I don't get too loud so they don't get nervous and shoot me over a traffic stop, to where they don't think I'm stealing, or something doesn't happen, and then you're going to have a bunch of people on the news justifying why it's okay that I got murdered. To where, I'm not going to have to, uh, you know, justify the reason I got a job or something. Or to where I'm going to have to figure out ways to make sure that I get the proper amount on the house that I own, to make sure that the person appraising my house doesn't shortchange me. There's just certain things that you don't have to worry about, being a white person. There's certain issues that you just don't have to deal with. There's a certain, if it's a white wrestler, I doubt that he's gonna have to be like that. That somebody's gonna make him cut his dreads or whatever. That you're gonna have to worry about some judge yelling, "Oh, there's a nigger! Get the nigger!" And then now we're gonna have to be like, how many cases have she judged? These are things that have to happen to black people. Like as I said, the wrestler having to cut his hair. He's been wrestling the whole time. All of a sudden, he has to cut his a public thing. Having your hair, having to pass laws so that you can just have your natural hair without people messing with you. You don't have to deal with that being white. There's not issues that you have to deal with. How your standard of beauty is, what your perception, a Eurocentric standard of beauty is what's considered as like, oh yeah, that's normal. That's what is accepted. In the land of the free, we need you to look like this. Like, no, we don't take a vaccine because of our freedoms, but yeah, you cut your hair. And it's just different things like that. It's not that hard to understand. Doesn't make you a bad guy. Doesn't mean that you're culpable. It's just, it is what it is. You think about a black person in a neighborhood, they're from the ghetto, or if there's a white lead in a TV show, chances are they don't have to be the first person in their family to make it to college. They don't have to be the one person, they made it out the hood, and just that's all of our freaking characters. I don't know. Thank you for listening to the show. I'm sorry, I got myself upset. Thank you for listening to this show. Thank you for listening to this episode. Check out my regular podcast, Bold Expressions, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be found. Check out other podcasts on this on this channel, which is how you're listening to this. Please share, like, subscribe, get it out there to other people. I really appreciate it. Be sure to comment on it. I am not so busy to where I can't comment back. I greatly appreciate all those who do comment, who watch and listen, who share. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Love you. Have a good day.